Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and honor to have with us Mr. McCarthy, who is, I was going to say is, the 55th, or was, but the 55th Speaker of the House of Representatives in the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank you.
And I think I can say safely that his political career is still, well, in fact, starting. You have a great future for the next, I'll say, well, 25 years at least. At least. So thank you very much to be with us. I think you are one of the persons who really know Donald Trump. And of course, you know most of the political class in the United States. You have a great experience. And we would like to take advantage of that to make some predictions. So I hope you will be careful enough, because maybe next year we will organize a similar meeting just to debrief and to say to what extent your predictions were correct. So let me ask you a very simple question to start with. Who really is Donald Trump?
I think what you see is what you get. I mean, there's a couple things Donald Trump has always believed, even before he ran for office. He firmly believed that tariffs work, that America has been at a disadvantage. He looks at everything differently than those who had sat in that position before. He thinks everything like a business. He loves to negotiate. He believes he can negotiate any deal. And the difference between this term and his term before, when he first came in the last time, he didn't know the job. He had people around him. Most people didn't think he could win. He didn't have the same quality that he'll have this time. He'll have better quality people around him. But he has the 10,000 hours. He knows what he wants to do. He knows he only has one term. And he can't run for re-election. So that means he'll do exactly what he wants. So he'll focus on day one. If you notice, he doesn't wait till the day begins. He'll use tariffs now as a negotiation tool to level the playing field. He'll focus on immigration. There'll be a lot of executive orders, but he'll talk to China. He'll talk to Mexico about tariffs and the idea, stop the migration coming into America. He'll use that. He'll use any tactic he can to get a better playing field for a negotiation. Regulations. The current administration had really ramped it up, especially in the agencies. You'll see this new professional, especially in the financial end, come in. I think that will rev up the economy in America even stronger. Normally in a presidential year, people hold their money back. They wait to see what's happening. We have a concern in this last election to be about the tax policy in America, because we passed it, it's coming due every 10 years because in the manner in which we passed it, which is called reconciliation. But with the Republicans having the House and the Senate, now they can do reconciliation again, and they don't have to worry about 60 votes being leveraged, so you don't have to worry about your tax rates going up. So that brings stability early. Those will be the first things. The cabinet, I think quite a few of them will get in this time. He's much further along than he was before. They've got a funding problem. How you start, you've got to first see how you finish. Congress is not finishing correctly. They have this year funding they're not going to do, so they're going to pass it on. So Trump is going to have to worry about the next. He's got the debt ceiling. He's got government funding come up in March. You've got to reconstitute the committees. You've got to start putting in your cabinet. To be bogged down on last year's funding is a mistake on the Republican side. They should get that done now, and they actually should get the debt ceiling done now to give him that honeymoon.
Well, he is a strong man, so everybody
He's a strong man leader.
Can recognize that. But even strong men have their weaknesses. So what are his weaknesses, if any?
Well, his strength and weaknesses can be the same thing. His personality, right? He gathers all the attention, but that also wears people out. This time, I think he'll have learned. He'll do better, but he will be unconventional. And what's interesting is, think about what he has brought into. It's a good thing. American government needs a disruptor. I mean, that's what the voters said in this process. Economically, from the border as well. But we need the Defense Department to be shaken up. We need to look at our government funding too much. And to be able to have like an Elon come in with what we have, the Doge, and it's very important because the structure we have now in Congress, nobody there is going to get something through with a funding cut. But if Elon proposes it, gets Republicans and Democrats, uses X to perpetuate it, it's kind of like how we dealt with when the Soviet Union collapsed. We had a whole military designed to defend ourselves against the Soviet Union, but what member of Congress is going to raise their hand and say, close my base? Well, no one. So we created something called a BRAC, a base realignment and closure, where a different committee got together, outside people, and if they finished something, it was guaranteed a vote. No amendments, you voted up or voted down. And bipartisan, it usually passes. So I think we can take a chunk of something that could put us in a stronger position. Now, the one thing I will say about foreign policy, in the election between Trump and Kamala Harris, I think from a foreign policy point of view, it's much better that Trump got elected, and some people can disagree with me. But from this point, if Kamala had been elected, she never went through the primary, she never got tested about it, and she doesn't have the 10,000 hours. So I believe the world would be unstable not knowing what her policies had been. Trump, people understand him. And the one thing I will say, looking at the world of Putin, every president that Putin's been in power with in America, he has invaded another country except one, under Trump. Middle East, the leaders have worked with Trump, so they have an understanding there. And I think that can bring some stability, plus also an opportunity for others in the region to lead.
So thank you very much. Let us take a few cases. Well, first, starting with trade. He believes you said in tariffs. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's easy to raise tariffs, but other countries can reply, can retaliate. So then, in history, that can lead actually to trade wars, and trade wars, at the end of the day, are detrimental to everybody. So, do you think that that is Trump, has thought deeply enough about this kind of consequence of engrenage?
Yeah, but understand what he's trying to do. The difference that people have to take him with people who have been before. He will say things that are unusual. Take, for instance, North Korea the last time. He calls him Rocket Man. Everybody's, oh my God, you're going to create a war. Then he sits down, talks to him. When you said before, if he performed the tariffs, that inflation, we didn't have inflation under that. Biden kept all of them. They weren't unbelievable. But what he's really trying to do is make a point to something. If he's proposing a tariff maybe with China, what he's literally saying is, America opens up our entire market for you to come in, and you selectively decide what can come in. Well, that's unfair. So what it does is it brings an attention, and 9 times out of 10, it brings people to the table. When he tweeted that he looks to Canada and Mexico and to China, we're trying to end the fentanyl coming in, killing Americans, the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. And think about those years. Your most productive years, the years you reproduce, and the years you serve in the military. It's critical for us. What did Trudeau do? He flew down to see him. So it's not creating a trade war, it's opening up a negotiation. And everything that he does, it's to get a negotiation, but also set the negotiation to some type of advantage that he wants.
But you never always win in this game. For instance, you mentioned Kim Jong-un, the Korean guy. So who won in this opening of the game? Well, none. There was no result, actually. There was a meeting.
It's not over, though. Okay.
It's not over, you
It's
say.
not over, but during that time,
Okay.
did Kim Jong-un stop testing missiles?
Okay.
Okay. And he's testing more now. So did it slow a pattern? It didn't finish, but look, I love Angela Duckworth's book. The greatest attribute of someone's going to be successful is perseverance. And I will tell you, in American politics, and many of you probably watched it, we have never seen that much politics in such a short amount of time. A sitting president debates and gets off the stage. They select somebody without going to a primary. We had assassination attempts, not one, but two. We haven't seen that since the 60s. I mean, he came a million-inch from being killed at a convention. And I talked to him the very next day, and Trump is like Trump, right? I saw that happen. I'm talking to him. He goes, Kevin, I could hear the bullet. Could you imagine hearing the bullet? And he goes, you know what I learned? And I thought this was going to be life-changing. He goes, I really learned something I never knew before. I said, what was it? He goes, you know, you'll learn this too because you have big, beautiful ears. There's a lot of blood in your ears. It went right there.
Yes, but you know, if I don't want to play the devil's advocate, but it seems to me, as an observer from outside, that this meeting with Kim Jong-un was actually very good for whom? For Kim Jong-un.
I don't know how you solve the problem without talking to him. And the one thing, like, let's go further on foreign policy. People will think that he's just going to shut down Ukraine. Well, when we did our second round, our last round of funding in Congress, he did not oppose it. He was the individual sitting on the outside that came up with the idea that make the money alone that could be forgiven, half forgiven with the current president and half with the next one. I think what he'll do is actually, if you read his latest tweets too about Syria, he's telling Putin, you're losing. You ought to wake up. Millions of people have died because of you, right? He's not going to walk out of it. He's going to set the stage to make it a different place. He started out calling him Rocket Man. Everybody was afraid war was going to develop. So what did he do? He put a missile defense in South Korea. He's going to build to the place, but he believes he can negotiate. And that's really the part he likes to get to.
Okay, so let us take another example, because it is the best we can do in this discussion. Ukraine, okay. So he said everybody remembers that it would solve the problems, I don't know in how many minutes, but anyway, the problem it seems to be with Ukraine is that it will not be a deal between two men. It will not be a deal between Trump and Putin. There will be many other actors involved. So my question is a real question. Sometimes questions are not real questions. In this case, it is a real question. Now, to your knowledge, is Trump, can he be as good in multilateral negotiations as he is in bilateral negotiations? But if he has to negotiate with 10 or 11 or whatever, the number, different parties who have a variety of interests, it's in terms of how to negotiate, it's a much more complex situation.
Trump is not one who sits down and looks at the actual details. He takes the macro approach. Now let's look at who's going to be a part of it. Marco Rubio, okay, who has been in our intel part of the Gang of Eight with me. Tim Walz, who served in. I believe Trump will have a better cabinet this time than he had last time. He also knows the job from that position. And I think another position, if you look, when Europe was upset with Trump in the last term, when he went, it's more about the tone, not what he said, because when you look back now, was he not right that Europe should actually spend more on their defense? I mean, and he comes from this position that America will be there for you, but taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for everything. If you want our defense system, you should actually pay for it as well because we have financial aid. That's different than presidents in the past, but he's not moving away from the policies and the positions we have. It's more a fiscal negotiation.
Okay, so let's continue to look at a few examples. You mentioned Syria, but take the Middle East in general, or take just the war in Gaza and the war which developed since then. Well, there are several options how to deal with such a complex issue. He could, for instance, the one scenario, decide to support Netanyahu's policies, and he could, I think, decide that Iran is so weak that it is the right time to end, to solve the nuclear problem, to bomb together with Israel the nuclear facilities of Iran. That would be one possible option. Another option would be to move back to redefine a variant of the two-state solution as was decided after the Oslo Agreement and killed by the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. These are two options. Do you have an idea yourself or what kind of scenario in this case he would engage?
First thing, I think he'd engage in two things.
Yeah.
Neither of those, but I'd check his past behavior.
Yeah.
The Abraham Accords was an amazing thing that accomplished. Yeah. And I really think, had the Biden administration embraced the Abraham Accords from the very beginning, October 7th would have happened. Also, there was a fundamental change in American policy to the Middle East, where the American policy kind of shunned some of our allies and allowed Iran to produce more oil. They were only producing 400,000 barrels at the end of Trump's administration a day. Then they went to 3 million. That is a lot of capital. And what does Iran do with their capital? They provided it to proxies who have disrupted the Middle East. I think you'll see a more tightening of economics on Iran. And Iran is in a weaker position if you take just in the last 6 weeks. Their missile defense system is not there. So you laid out two scenarios, but I don't believe those two scenarios are the only scenarios. I believe Iran is in a different position that they realized they now have sent ballistic missiles from Iran into Israel, didn't hit. They also now, they don't have a defense against missiles coming at them, that they have to think twice to pick another fight. It may be an economic time with a weakness in defense, and now just losing bases in Syria, that may be a setting of the table that they decide they don't need a nuclear weapon because one of those options could be on the table. So it may be a good timing that other things transpire, a different option that's not on the table today.